Here is the question. When someone hurts you, what should you do with the pain? That is not a theoretical question. That is everyday life. Someone disrespects you, and something in you wants to disrespect them back. Someone ignores you, and now you want them to feel what it is like to be ignored. Someone embarrasses you, and now you want the perfect sentence that embarrasses them worse. Someone betrays you, and now part of you says, I hope they feel exactly what they made me feel. And honestly, it makes sense. Pain wants an answer. Pain does not like to sit quietly in the corner. Pain wants movement. Pain wants a target. Pain wants a receipt. One of the oldest instincts in human beings is this: if you wound me, I will wound you back. Not because it fixes anything, but because for a moment it feels like balance. You made me feel small, so I will make you feel small. You made me anxious, so I will make you anxious. You made me look foolish, so I will make you look foolish. You withdrew from me, so I will withdraw from you. You hurt me, so I will make sure you hurt too. And then we call that justice. But is it? That is the question. Is giving back what people do to you actually healthy? Does it heal you? Does it make the relationship better? Does it make the world more ordered? Does it make you more free? Or does it slowly turn you into a reflection of the thing that wounded you? Revenge is seductive because it comes dressed up as fairness. It says, I am not being cruel, I am just giving them what they gave me. But revenge has a hidden cost. It keeps the person who hurt you at the center of your life. You think you are taking power back, but actually you are letting their behavior become the blueprint for yours. They were cold, so now you become cold. They were dishonest, so now you become manipulative. They were cruel, so now you become sharp. They were petty, so now you become petty. Little by little, the wound becomes your teacher. That is dangerous because whatever you imitate begins to form you. If someone harms you and then you let their harm decide how you live, they have not only hurt you, they have trained you. And that is where the phrase an eye for an eye is so often misunderstood. People say, well, the Bible says an eye for an eye, as if God was handing every angry person permission to get even. But that is not what the phrase originally meant. In the Old Testament, an eye for an eye appears in the law given to ancient Israel. Israel was a people coming out of slavery in Egypt. They were becoming a nation. They needed laws to govern real life: violence, injury, property, family, conflict, and justice. They were not living inside a modern court system. In that world, revenge could easily spiral out of control. One person takes an eye, and the other family takes a life. One insult becomes a feud. One injury becomes generations of retaliation. So when the law says eye for eye, tooth for tooth, it is not encouraging revenge. It is limiting revenge. That is the key. It is saying justice must be proportionate. If someone takes an eye, you do not take their life. If someone knocks out a tooth, you do not burn down their village. The response must be measured. In a violent world, that was restraint. It was a way of saying, stop the escalation. Human revenge almost always wants interest. Someone insults me, and I do not just want to insult them equally. I want to destroy them. Someone hurts me, and I do not just want repair. I want humiliation. Someone betrays me, and I do not just want justice. I want to watch their life fall apart. Revenge rarely stays even, it grows. So the Old Testament law placed a boundary around retaliation. It moved justice away from personal vengeance and toward public order. That matters because the Bible is not naive. The Bible does not say harm does not matter. The Bible does not say evil should be ignored. The Bible does not say victims should just smile and pretend nothing happened. No, the Bible cares deeply about justice. But biblical justice is not the same as personal revenge. Justice seeks restoration of order. Revenge seeks emotional repayment. Justice asks, what is right? Revenge asks, how can I make them feel my pain? Justice can be patient. Revenge is usually impulsive. Justice can be measured. Revenge loves excess. Justice can protect the innocent. Revenge often creates more victims. That is the difference. And then Jesus takes this even deeper in the New Testament. Jesus directly quotes this law. He says, "You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth." Then he says, "But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil." This passage can be confusing if we do not read it carefully. Jesus is not saying evil does not matter. He is not saying abuse should continue. He is not saying boundaries are unspiritual. He is not saying governments should never restrain wrongdoing. He is not saying you should stay in unsafe situations. Jesus is doing something deeper. He is confronting the personal desire to retaliate. He is speaking to the instinct inside us that says, if someone shames me, I must shame them back. If someone insults me, I must return the insult. If someone wounds my pride, I must restore my pride by wounding theirs. Jesus is not removing justice. He is removing revenge from the heart of his disciples. Then Jesus gives the example of turning the other cheek. In that culture, a strike on the cheek was not only physical pain, it was an insult. It was a way of humiliating someone. Jesus is addressing the insult, the dishonor, the personal offense. His point is not, let violent people destroy you. His point is, do not let insult control you. Do not become a slave to retaliation. Do not let someone else's contempt decide your character. Turning the other cheek is not weakness. It is strength under control. It says, you may insult me, but you do not get to form me. You may shame me, but you do not get to rule my soul. You may act beneath what is right, but I will not follow you down. That is very different from being passive. Passive people do nothing because they are afraid. Jesus is describing someone who is free. Many people think strength is the ability to hit back, but sometimes strength is the ability not to. Anyone can react. Anyone can throw the same poison back. Anyone can become sarcastic, cold, petty, harsh, or cruel when they have been hurt. That is easy. The harder thing is to stay awake, stay truthful, stay firm, stay loving, and refuse both extremes, becoming a doormat on one side or becoming a mirror of evil on the other. Jesus calls us to a third way, not passive, not vengeful, free. Think about Joseph in the Old Testament. Joseph was one of the sons of Jacob. He had brothers who hated him. Part of the tension came from family favoritism, because Jacob loved Joseph openly and gave him special treatment. Joseph also had dreams that suggested he would one day rise above his family, and his brothers resented him deeply. Eventually, their hatred became action. They threw Joseph into a pit and sold him into slavery. That is not a small offense. That is betrayal at the deepest level. Joseph ends up in Egypt. He suffers. He is falsely accused. He is imprisoned. Years of his life are taken from him. But through a long and painful path, God raises Joseph to a position of power in Egypt. He becomes second only to Pharaoh, responsible for managing food during a severe famine. Then one day, his brothers come to Egypt looking for food. They do not recognize Joseph, but Joseph recognizes them. Now think about that moment. If anyone had the chance to say, an eye for an eye, it was Joseph. You threw me into a pit. Now I can throw you into prison. You sold me as a slave. Now I can make you powerless. You ignored my cries. Now I can ignore yours. You made me suffer. Now I can make sure you suffer. Humanly speaking, Joseph had the perfect opportunity for revenge. But Joseph does something deeper. He tests them, yes. He does not pretend nothing happened. He does not immediately trust them. He moves carefully. And that is important because forgiveness does not mean foolishness. But in the end, Joseph does not destroy them. He weeps. He reveals himself. He provides for them. Later, after their father dies, the brothers become afraid. They think Joseph may finally take revenge now that Jacob is gone. And Joseph says something extraordinary. You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. That sentence does not excuse what they did. Joseph calls it evil. He does not say, it was fine. He does not say, you did your best. He does not say, no harm done. He says, you meant evil. That is truth. But then he also says God was working beyond their evil. That is faith. Joseph is free because he refuses to let their sin become his identity. He refuses to let revenge become the final chapter. He sees that God is bigger than what was done to him. That is not easy. That is not cheap. That is not sentimental. That is spiritual maturity. Joseph shows us that forgiveness is not denial. Forgiveness is not pretending evil was good. Forgiveness is giving the final judgment to God and refusing to become a prisoner of revenge. Now, that does not mean reconciliation is always immediate or even always possible. Reconciliation requires repentance, truth, changed behavior, and safety. Joseph did not hand his brothers power over him again in a careless way. He acted with wisdom. That matters because some people hear messages about forgiveness and think it means let the same person keep hurting you. No, that is not biblical wisdom. Forgiveness releases revenge. Boundaries protect what is good. You can forgive someone and still not give them the same access. You can forgive someone and still report a crime. You can forgive someone and still leave an unsafe situation. You can forgive someone and still say, this relationship cannot continue in the same form. Forgiveness is not the cancellation of wisdom. It is the cancellation of vengeance. Now let's bring this into real life. Someone gossips about you at work. Your first instinct might be to gossip back. You start collecting stories. You start building your case. You start waiting for the perfect chance to make them look bad. But ask yourself, what is this forming in me? Is this justice, or am I becoming the same thing I hate? A wiser response might be to address the issue directly, document what needs to be documented, speak truthfully to the right person, and refuse to become a gossip yourself. That is not weakness, that is integrity. Someone in your family gives you the silent treatment. Your first instinct might be to give it back. They ignored me, so I will ignore them harder. Now everyone is quietly punishing each other, and the house becomes an emotional freezer. Is that healthy? No. A better response might be, I can tell something is wrong. I am willing to talk when we can do it respectfully, but I am not going to participate in punishment through silence. That is not revenge. That is truth with a boundary. Someone sends you a disrespectful text. Your first instinct is to send back a sharper one. And let's be honest, sometimes you have the line ready. It is sitting there in your mind like a little missile, and part of you thinks, this is going to be incredible. But before you send it, ask, who am I becoming if I send this? Will this help? Will this heal? Will this clarify? Will this protect what is good? Or will this just make me feel powerful for 7 seconds and ashamed later? A mature response may be, I am willing to talk about this, but not like this. That is strength. That is refusing to let someone else's immaturity recruit yours. The Apostle Paul says in Romans, repay no one evil for evil. That is a very clear command. But notice, Paul does not stop there. He says, beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God. That phrase can sound intense, but it means this. You are not qualified to carry final judgment. When you carry revenge, you are trying to sit in God's seat, and that seat is too heavy for you. You do not know everything. You do not see every motive. You do not see the full story. You do not know how justice should unfold across time. God does. So Paul is not saying evil does not matter. He is saying evil matters so much that it belongs in the hands of God, not in the hands of your wounded ego. Then Paul says something even harder. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. That is one of the clearest answers to our question. Is it healthy to give back what people do to you? If they give evil and you give evil back, evil has multiplied. It has not been overcome. It has spread. It entered them, and now it is entering you. But when you respond with truth, wisdom, courage, boundaries, prayer, and goodness, evil does not get to reproduce through you. That is how evil is overcome. Not by pretending, not by enabling, not by being weak, but by refusing to become its instrument. This is the heart of Jesus' teaching. Jesus does not merely teach this, he lives it. At the cross, Jesus is mocked, beaten, falsely accused, humiliated, and crucified. If anyone had the right to call down judgment, it was Jesus. He was innocent. He had done no wrong. The people were acting unjustly. But from the cross, Jesus says, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." That is not weakness. That is the strongest love the world has ever seen. Jesus does not deny evil. The cross exposes evil. It shows human cruelty, cowardice, envy, political corruption, religious hypocrisy, mob violence, betrayal, and injustice all in one place. But Jesus does not let evil determine his response. He absorbs the violence of the world without returning it in kind, and through that, he breaks its power. That is the pattern of the kingdom: not revenge, redemption; not getting even, making new; not returning the wound, healing the wound. So, what do you do when someone hurts you? First, tell the truth about what happened. Do not spiritualize denial. Do not say, "It's fine," if it was not fine. Do not call something small if it was serious. Do not rush to sound mature before you have been honest. Joseph said, "You meant evil against me." That is clarity. You can say, "That hurt me. That was wrong. That was not okay. I need to think about what trust looks like now." Truth is the beginning of healing. Second, refuse revenge. That means you do not let their behavior become your instruction manual. They lied, but you do not lie. They gossiped, but you do not gossip. They were cruel, but you do not become cruel. They were petty, but you do not become petty. They withdrew to punish, but you do not punish back. Refusing revenge is not letting them win. It is refusing to let their sin reproduce in you. Third, create wise boundaries. Boundaries are not revenge. Boundaries are stewardship. A boundary says, "I will not keep participating in this pattern. I will not continue this conversation while you are insulting me. I am not available for manipulation. I forgive you, but trust has to be rebuilt. I love you, but access to my life requires responsibility." That is healthy. That is biblical wisdom. Fourth, leave justice with God and with proper authority. Sometimes harm needs consequences. If someone abuses, steals, threatens, or seriously harms, that is not merely a private emotional issue. That may require authorities, accountability, legal action, church leadership, professional help, or separation. Forgiveness does not erase consequences. The Bible's concern for justice means wrongdoing should be taken seriously. But even when consequences are necessary, revenge must not rule your heart. Fifth, bless instead of curse. This does not mean pretending you like what happened. It means you refuse to speak death over the person who hurt you. You pray, "Lord, I give this person to you. I ask you to deal with them truthfully. I ask you to heal what is broken. I ask you to protect me from bitterness. I ask you to help me become more like Christ, not more like my wound." That prayer is not easy, but it is freeing. Because bitterness feels powerful, but it is a chain. Revenge feels like control, but it keeps you tied to the injury. So, what does an eye for an eye mean? In its original setting, it meant justice must be measured and proportionate. It was a limit on revenge, not permission for personal vengeance. And what does Jesus do with it? Jesus takes us deeper. He says, "Do not organize your life around retaliation. Do not live as a mirror of the people who hurt you. Do not let evil reproduce itself through your response. Do not confuse revenge with strength. Do not confuse forgiveness with weakness. Be truthful. Be wise. Be courageous. Set boundaries. Pursue justice when needed. But do not return evil for evil, because getting even does not make you whole. It just keeps you even with the injury. And God is not trying to make you even. He is trying to make you free. That is the invitation. Not to be a doormat, not to be passive, not to pretend, but to become the kind of person who can say, "What they did was wrong, but I will not become wrong in response. What they did hurt me, but I will not let the hurt become my master. What they did has consequences, but revenge will not be my identity. I belong to Christ, and because I belong to Christ, I do not have to give back the evil I received. I can tell the truth. I can walk in wisdom. I can set the boundary. I can leave judgment with God. I can overcome evil with good. And that is not weakness. That is the strength of a person who is finally free.